A is for Alcoholic is a program about recovery. My name is John and I'm an alcoholic.
And my name is Jerry and I'm an alcoholic.
Join us as we go through the alphabet of alcoholism one letter at a time.
You're going to edit all this stuff out, aren't you? Or should I shut up and what this is a serious meeting now?
No, I don't think it was ever a serious meeting.
No.
I mean,
We've never had a very special episode. We have never had a serious meeting.
But yeah, well, I guess we'll just get started. We'll go into it, right? So welcome to A's for Alcoholic. I am joined with my always co-host, Jerry Wagner Jr.
Hi.
Special guest, Jerry Wagner Sr.
Hi, good afternoon.
So today's episode was suggested by Jerry's dad, and it is what was it again? What was the exact phrasing, Jerry Sr.?
Why I'm still in AA.
Why I'm still in AA.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and it's a good question, because I think it works for some, it doesn't work for others. People drop out, people go out, as they say. And I was thinking about this morning and trying to come up with some sort of, I'm always trying to come up with some sort of pithy, answer or something like that. And I was like, what do people usually say? Like, what is the typical stock answer? It gave me a new lease on life, right? Like, oh, I got a new lease on life. And then I was like, well, what does that mean? Like, what is the lease and what is a lease? And a lease is just a new agreement that we still have to pay every single month or week or day, as the case may be. But I don't think, I didn't see any other way before. Like, in the throes of alcoholism, I mean, in the last good drunk that Jerry and I shared in like 2013 or something, like, it was just, sitting on the couch feeling like shit. And there was no thought of like the future other than I need to get home or I need to get to work so that I can drink again. And I feel like there's been this, like, oh, okay, there's not only is there a better way, but there is a right way to live life. And not that there's one specific way, but that things like accountability, I think we can all agree that accountability, that responsibility, these things are important regardless of how you choose to lead your life. Being irresponsible, being unaccountable has never led me to anything better than my next drunk in the past, or even as a sober person. It's never led me to feel good about anything, being unaccountable or irresponsible. And so that idea of the lease is something that occurred to me because we talk about one day at a time, daily reprieve. We have to go back in every single day and take stock and do the work and all that kind of stuff. And that was something that struck me as like, that's why I'm still in AA, because it continues to work for me. Even if I'm not fully 100% committed going to a meeting every single day or every single week, the book is there on the shelf and I can reach back into it anytime I need to. I mean, Jerry Sr., you've been doing this for almost 30 years now?
A little over 30. If I can hold out till September, it'll be 32 years.
32 years. Jeez. So then why do you keep going back? I mean, that's a long time.
Well, thank you. And I think you summed it up eloquently. So I've got nothing left to say. I'm just but and I really wanted to, and if I may, just start in. But when I because I've listened to you guys' podcasts, and I really wanted to share with you. It's not about what AA did for me in the last 31 years, and how I got here and why I got here. That's there. It's why do I wake up in the morning today after 31 years and really not waking up with the thought of alcohol on my mind, or having to fight the having to fight the pangs of wanting to drink, or as I say, even thinking about going back to that crutch. It just doesn't cross my mind. So why AA? Why do I still stay active? Or and believe me, I'm not that active. I mean, but I really wanted to talk about step 12. Step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of this step. We tried to practice these principles in all our affairs. I tried to carry this message to those who still suffer and practice these principles in all affairs. I think it's something like that. You'd think I'd have it memorized by now, but I'm lucky.
Hey, you're doing better than us too. So
yeah, well, hey,
as far as memorizing the steps,
I got the same color socks on, and I feel pretty good. But I really would, if it's all right with you guys, I'd like to talk about, what's going on today, because a lot of people, after they get some time under their belt, it is we start to treat it like we did our spirituality prior to AA, where it's just a spare tire, and we know it's there if we need it, but we don't need it. It's not on our mind. And so that, that's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit. And of course, naturally, the primary thing is to stay sober, because I'm worthless to anybody. I go back to the way I used to be. I can't help anybody else, and I can't help myself. And believe me, it's you're only one drink away from going back to everything that happened prior. I knew a dear friend of mine. I respected. He was older than I was, and I respected him tremendously. Very successful in his life, very successful in his career. He had so much going for him. He actually sponsored a building for us to hold meetings down in Nogales, because we couldn't survive on 12 people putting $1 in at a time, to pay rent. He went and actually procured a building himself, out of his own money, so that we could have meetings. And, it was kind of like, well, that's not the spirit of A. And he says, yeah, it is, I need to do this. And after 14 years, he had a tragic incident with his son, and he went back out, and, he corrected himself rapidly, but after that last bout, he wound up dying from a heart attack right after that. And I think that last bout is what did it. All of the stress just was too much for his body. But the spiritual awakening, we hope that everybody has an opportunity to feel that. There are others that don't. I had a kid that I sponsored, and he was a scientist, like 180 days in the Antarctic type scientist. And, he really struggled with the spiritual part of it. So, we just went into, it's funny because I drew a dot on a piece of paper, this giant piece of butcher paper, and I put a dot right in the middle of one, and I put a dot up in the corner of the other. And I said, okay, no, right now, this is you, and this paper is the universe, and that dot in the middle is you, because you're the center of the universe. The paper over here, that little tiny dot way off in the corner, that's where you really are, And so, if you don't want to believe in God, let's talk about, your right place, getting right with the universe instead of getting right with God. And, and he used that for a lot of years until he actually had a real spiritual awakening. And it was funny because, I asked him, was being such a critical thinker, was it a one leaf at a time? And he said, no, man, the whole burning bush hit me. It's really a wonderful story, and it's the way that this program works for people, and it's been to a great benefit, and for him and for all around him. But I'm not going to stress the spiritual awakening, because it says having, the 12th step is having had a spiritual awakening. If you haven't had the spiritual awakening yet, or, getting right with the universe yet, you're not a step 12, so you got to go back and figure out which one you left out. But
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just going to say, I think there's, you talk about burning bush, and I think that Jerry and I both would put our spiritual awakening in this sort of grinding it out column.
Yeah.
It comes in these little spits, little spurts, fits and spurts, and spasms. And but every day it's like, okay, there has not been some ephemeral epiphany. It's always like, all right, let's get in here and find those little moments in the day where maybe God is saying you're on the right path, and having to really work to recognize those. And I'm not opposed to the work, but I think I was a little disappointed that I did not have a burning bush moment. But I'm kind of coming to terms with that.
You did, and that's that's the term I used earlier. And the vast majority, I promise you, the one thing I've seen through the experience of 30 years in the program is the vast majority of the people have their burning bush experience the same way you do, and we call it one leaf. I had the burning bush experience one leaf at a time.
Yeah.
And I said it earlier, where I had asked him if it was a one leaf at a time, and he said, no, I got the whole bush. But figuring from his analytical mind that it would come in those little, those little spurts, but, and that is what happens to the vast majority. And, a lot of times it comes in hindsight. You realize that, there was either divine intervention or spiritual motivation, or however you want to, however it happens. It's not like you're feeling it, having those goosebump moments. It's looking back and going, shit, and realizing, what had happened after the fact. But
yeah,
the 12-step, really is about, again, however you have, your relationship with your higher power, whatever it is, whether, it's God or the universe or Allah or Buddha or the doorknob, whatever it is, if you've gotten to that point, to that portion of it yet, then, that's when 12-step comes in. And 12-step is just, living life on life's terms, using the tools that the first 11 steps have taught you, and the rooms and the people in the AA have taught you, and, that carry that message. Carrying that message isn't necessarily going out and sponsoring people. I mean, that's a wonderful thing to do. And, it's believe me, I mean, every kid I've ever sponsored has inevitably turned into my sponsor. We wind up eventually sponsoring each other, because they teach you as much as, you get as much out of the experiences as they do by having you available to bounce things off of. I don't think I've ever been able to give any answers. It's just, making sure that they're I always felt my responsibility was making sure they were asking the right questions. But, carrying the message to those who still suffer, I've taken my path of that 12-step and kind of taking it a little broader. And I think that I'm helping the people who still suffer by helping other people. And the reason I say that is, I'm involved in the Episcopal Church ministry here for the Diocese of Arizona. And we really, we do a lot of educational things, not necessarily for the person who still suffers, but to give support to them and to the people that take care of them or that love them. Because still, in 2021, alcoholism or drug addiction or substance abuse, overeating, anything, any type of crutch that we use is looked at as a moral issue and not a medical issue, which isn't the case. I mean,
right.
Modern medical science has proven the fact that, this is a disease. And, so many people look at it as a moral issue. And so, people suffer stigma because of it. And that stigma, one, makes it difficult, their journey more difficult. But even more so than that are, the people who care for them and the people that love them. Being in a church setting, an Episcopal church setting, we would run programs, to help educate people. And at the end of them, an elder woman would come up with tears in her eyes and in a whisper say, my child is still out on the street. I haven't heard from her in 5 years, type situation. And she said in a whisper because she was terrified that the people around her would hear it, that they might judge her, that she might have been a bad mother because, and that's why, she couldn't fix her daughter, type thing. And so, we've extended our, adding support to the people that suffer and those that care for them and those that love them, to the public at large. and we really feel like that's carrying the message, because anybody that we educate, I mean, it's we want to be where mental health is right now. If you look at socially, everybody's recognizing mental health is a disease, and not to be treated as a stigma.
Yeah.
And, somebody is going to counseling, or somebody that needs that help, shouldn't be stigmatized. And what's going on right now in the medical, in society in general, in reference to mental health, I would love that substance abuse would be treated in the same way. So that's why we're in my life, carrying that message to those that still suffer. Well, if they're added extra support, because that person is on the bleachers cheering for him instead of being critical of him, I feel like I'm being productive and working the 12 step.
Mm-hmm.
But the carrying the message to those, it's very important. And the personal satisfaction is a great motivator. And keeping stepping out of self and having the opportunity to be of service to other people is probably the healthiest that I can be, in my own mental health and my own emotional health. But I have to say, in all seriousness, you want to talk about my spiritual connection with God, ask me 2 minutes after I took off my Santa suit. Mm-hmm. It's just fucking incredible. I never feel closer to God.
Well, we need context on that. Though. That's the thing, is you can't just say.
Was this morning? Was that like, yeah?
That's just how he waters the lawn, man.
It was actually, it was last night walking the streets. But
yeah, talking about God.
I've been very, very, very blessed with the opportunities to be of service in that way. And my AA sponsor for 26 years was an Episcopal priest, and his name was Father Ed. It was down in Nogales, and I was doing the program, and I thought I was a pretty I won't use the term tough guy, but I ran with a rough crowd, and Santa suits to me was kind of a joke. And he called me up and he says, the clinic, they had a clinic for kids that had physical disabilities. They'd service there was once a month that people would come from all over Mexico and come to Nogales, and the U.S. Customs usually actually let them and their families cross the border, get on these buses and go to the church, and they'd see doctors from all over Southern Arizona. So it was a wonderful ministry. But the Santa they had didn't speak Spanish. And so Father Ed called me up and he said, get a Santa suit. And homie, don't do that. Was, I don't want to say. And all as I heard from him was, get a suit, click, before I had a chance to say anything, right? So, man, the first time I did that, and I was there for those kids and all of their brothers and sisters and all of their family, man, afterwards, I just cried like a baby, and I have to tell you, that was probably one of the most spiritual experiences I've ever had in my life. And, so, being of service, you don't have to worry about that spirituality, because I really honestly and truly feel that, being of service to others is that connection. That's how we are serving, in gratitude and in love. And I think that the spirituality, just is intertwined in that. There's no way around it. It's not like, I got to connect with God, today. Shit, I didn't know how to pray. I still can't meditate. I even inside my brain, I'm chasing the next, shiny, it's like rolling a shiny ball in front of a little kid. I can't meditate, and praying was something I 30 years later, I still struggle with. You talk about divine intervention. After in the program, I just couldn't pray. And I was blessed with a 1972 Dodge Power Wagon that was the most cold-blooded beast I've ever seen in my life. And, I turned the key over and I wasn't going anywhere for 20 minutes. So I decided, well, I might as well, try to pray here. So I haven't had that truck in probably 25 years. I still pray in my car because that's what I learned, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you, so going back a little bit, you said, when they talk about the mother coming in and feeling guilty that she hadn't seen her daughter and wanting to be quiet about it because she was concerned that there might be some judgment on her. As the parent of an alcoholic, how do you balance the knowing in the program, you know that it's a disease and you know that you can't control it. And then what I must imagine is there has been in the past some level of guilt for thinking. I mean, did you ever think like, gosh, I feel like I have failed my child in some way, but knowing that there was nothing you could do except to just wait? Like, how does one balance those two things in their mind and heart?
Well, it's funny because I know, how Jerry got there, and so I don't have to be judgmental of him. There was a tremendous amount of guilt, not just for him, but for, my whole family, everybody around me. I really, that was part of the reason I was afraid to ask God for help, because I figured, karma's going to come back and just bite me in the ass. I've got, and I better keep my distance from that guy, because he's going to. There was a cartoon of a guy standing on top of a hill, and there's a cloud over him, and out of the cloud there's a hand coming down, and it's got that finger on the thumb, and it's just getting ready to flick the back of his head. So I just kept on waiting for God to flick the back of my head, because that's what I deserved for the damage I'd done to my family. And come to realize that there's a lot more grace in this universe than I give anybody and everybody credit for. But there was guilt, and so when I had to make my amends, I realized that words are irrelevant, and I had to the example, because I told my family a million times, I'm sorry, and I'm not going to drink anymore. It didn't mean shit. So the people that I hurt the most were the ones that I was less likely to have them feel my amends verbally. So I had to do it by action, and my action was I can't fix the past. The only thing I can do is not do a repeat performance. So every day I don't fuck up like I used to in the past was an amends to them. And that was the only thing. And I can to this day beat myself up with guilt. But I mean, the only thing I can do is move forward in a positive manner, and that's the most productive thing I can do. And if I do that because I love my family, that's important. But I was fortunate enough to to be able to blame my son for most of his shortcomings, so I didn't have to hold responsibility. Thanks, son.
Yeah.
I appreciate
no, but you're right. I mean, it's like you have done everything to rebuild the trust that may have been broken some 30 plus years ago. So
right.
And I realized that Jerry's sober in spite of me, not because of me. So,
right. Every day it's like a shaking fist. I don't drink, But honestly, my perspective of it was I obviously never placed blame on anyone for whatever it was, because that's like blaming genetics. That's like saying, well, why are my feet size 9.5 instead of size 11? You know what I mean? Like, I can't be mad at anybody for that. It's just, that's the way it is. That is just what it is. The only difference is I picked up a drink to figure out genetically I was predisposed to this thing, but I already knew it. I could see it all down the line, but we already know it's complicated. It's all part of the culture and what you grow up in. Even outside of my dad, though, it was just part of the culture we grew up on the border is very heavy drinking culture. So we drank.
I grew up swearing that I would never do to my kids what my father did to me, and I think I think I did every bit as much damage as what he did. And the idea that every day that I wake up now and I don't have to be doing that, is a huge plus for me.
Well, yeah, but you've done so much to not repair, but to help grow, right? And to help support,
right?
And that your family.
No, I'll go back to the Jerry sober in spite of me, not because I've got absolutely no credit at all.
But it doesn't really matter what the reason is, right? Whether it's because of you or in spite of you. I mean, it's
as long as I'm doing it right. Yeah.
No, well, maybe I can take credit because to Jerry thinking I don't want to be like that asshole. Fuck me. Maybe I was inspiration.
Maybe, I don't know. But I'm also like AA worked for that old guy too, so maybe I should try that shit out. But
what do you think, Jerry? Junior.
Wow.
Like, why are you still in AA? Like, what is it? I mean,
this is a really interesting topic because I know last week I gave you so much pushback on the spiritual aspect. And so
yes.
this also to me feels like an example of that, of us talking about spirituality. Because last week you had started off talking about God and I pushed back really hard on you.
Yes.
And now all of a sudden this weird fate, coincidence, whatever we want to call it, God, I guess, is now working through where my dad opens up. And I don't know if maybe he listens to last week's podcast and he's like, I need to get this
not yet
right on God. But it's just so funny. I think the reason why I still work the program or work within or around the program is because it really worked for me. It's weird, man, because I think there is also the aspect of there's some fear in there too, that I don't want to go back to how it used to be. And I know that if I work the program, then I don't have to go back to how it used to be. Like if I just do it on my own will alone, I don't know if I can accomplish it. You know, this daily practice. So for me, working with the program, it's just part of that daily practice of using those tools and then reaching out if it gets real painful, or you know what I mean, or if life gets a little too much like life, you know.
Yeah.
And that brings the third segment of 12-step into the conversation. Practice these principles in all our affairs. You know, and what does that mean? You know, we're blessed. You know, we're really, really blessed with the opportunity to use the tools of the first 11 steps in our lives. You know, most people don't have that. You know, and you meet people not necessarily in the program, but who have friends or relatives in the program, and they're like, why do they not make us learn this before we can get a high school diploma? You know, why doesn't everybody use these 12 steps? My God, you know, they're so functional. But it's true, because somewhere along the line, and not because of me, I didn't do it, it wasn't a conscious thing, but somewhere along the line in working the steps, I woke up one morning and I stopped enjoying my anger. And I think I talked about this the last time actually that I shared with you guys, but the day that I stopped enjoying it, I stopped being angry so much. So now, you know, when I'm driving down the road and I want that son of a bitch in front of me to pull in front of me so I can, you know, yell at him, I know it's not that guy in front of me. Something else is bothering me, you know, but for me, that's a bell, you know, that's a warning bell. But that warning bell, I learned, you know, I have that in my toolbox from being exposed to the 12 steps, or the first 11 steps, excuse me. If I'd never done the first 11 steps, I'd be enjoying the anger and not realizing, you know, what's going on in my life. So, you know, in many, many ways, you know, practice these principles in all our affairs is, you know, just every bit as strong as tried to carry the message, because I promise, you know, if you're practicing the principles, you're carrying the message by a living example of what that message is. You know, a lot of people, I have to say, probably the most influential that I've been, you know, in this program isn't sponsoring kids. It's somebody looking and saying, man, like Jerry said earlier, even that fuck up can do it. You know, that's a strong message. That's a really strong message. You know, the example that, you know, that I've been able to set by, you know, by being blessed with this opportunity is, you know, every bit as strong as me opening my mouth and saying, oh, I stopped drinking 31 years ago. You know, again, so, you know, practicing the principles is very, very, very strong. But, you know, it takes you to the next level. And I don't know if I'm hogging up the conversation too much, but I really would like to touch on this for a little while, because this is, you know, for me, what AA means to me today is really what I'm about to say. And that is, I'm at the point now where I am questioning my motives. And it is a true blessing, because I can do wonderful things for very selfish motives. And I can do really crappy things for good and pure motives. But I had, as I mentioned earlier, my sponsor, oh shit, my battery's low. Are you guys okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to be blessed with having Father Ed as a sponsor for 26 years. And this guy was the textbook example of good karma. He would step in horseshit and walk away with a pony every fucking time. And I said that in his eulogy, you know, I tried to describe them, and I used that line because it was true. But 30 something years into the program, I still can't do what he did because my whole life I've been goal oriented. I'm a salesman by trade. I'm always looking, that it's a win and lose type thing. It's, trying to grab that brass ring. I don't know if you guys understand that analogy. It was big in my day about riding the merry-go-round. There used to be a brass ring. If you grab it, you got a prize. But you chase that, chalk it up on the win side. And he absolutely didn't live his life that way. And here's a guy who was a salesman his whole life. He started out as a Hudson salesman, graduated, worked his way through used cars, and he was finally at a Mercedes-Benz dealership, and he tossed it all in to go sell God. And that's what he did. He sold, he's been a salesman his whole life. So, he related to what I did, but he completely had a different mindset. And he had a mindset that he learned through AA. And I'm not there. And I don't know if I'll ever be there, but I can try to emulate it. But Father Ed could wake up in the morning knowing that if he did the right thing, if he woke up and he just lived his life doing the right thing, the outcome was irrelevant. And I just, I still shake my head. What the fuck, who can live like that? That's no way to live. You got to keep trying. If the serenity prayer, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, but the courage to change the things I can. The serenity prayer actually is an old German prayer. It's a call to arms. Grant me the courage to change the things I can. And the serenity is, it was turned around. AA turned it, reversed it, so that it was even more the quote unquote serenity prayer. But the real thing was, to have the balls to go out and do what you're supposed to do. So I mean, that win or lose to me has always been, I would say win or lose, but reaching that goal was always and still, my biggest motivating factor. Whereas he lived his life knowing, and I'll repeat it, as long as he woke up and he lived his life the way it should be lived, and he did the right thing, the outcome was irrelevant. And, I used to yell at him about stopping and helping people on the freeway. He always carried water, and here in Arizona, man, people break down in their five, so he'd always stop. And one time, a university professor from the University of Arizona stopped on the freeway and helped a couple, and they murdered him. And I called him out on that. And he says, if that happens, oh, well, I'm not going to stop helping people, And in all sincerity, that was, he said, oh, well, that's not going to stop me. He carried around a bunch of $5 bills, and whenever he drove, and as a guy on the street corner, he'd give him $5, and I'd say, if he's just going to buy booze with that, and he'd go, oh well,
I'm not going to stop helping people.
Right. This is a man who was like a constant in my life too. It was just so funny to have like a family gathering and Dad sponsored be hanging out. And he was he was an Episcopal priest. Yeah, he was a hell of a character. But it's so funny to hear my dad talk about these experiences, and I know this person personally, and I was drunk as hell a few times around him. So oh well.
Oh well.
You know what I mean though? Like, yeah,
I think that's a great mantra though. Oh, well, like as long as you're doing the right thing. Oh, well, then, and I mean, you're right. It's a very difficult thing to wrap your head around. And I was struck too about what you said about enjoying my anger. Because I was at work the other night, and this woman I work with, we're waiting tables, and she comes up to me, not to say hello or how are you doing. She immediately goes into some diatribe about somebody who's not even there that night, that she's angry that they don't do a good job. And I'm just like, oh yeah, I don't know. And it just occurred to me that she was more interested in like fueling that, getting the satisfaction from that anger. And I just was like, this person's not even here. This happened 2 days ago. This is not a topic of discussion now. And so I kind of just walked away from it. I said, okay, and left. But I see it a lot, and I feel it a lot, and I've gotten a little bit better. I don't like to feed into it because it doesn't go anywhere, right? It's a poison pill. It's a shit sandwich. It's a whatever you want to call it. It's not any good. And it's like finding that, like you said, it's a bell, right? It's a warning. Yeah. Oh, I'm angry. Well, it's not that thing that's making me angry. It's something else.
we all, enjoy watching and have a good laugh at all of the Karen memes that are on the internet, and all the videos that are on TikTok and Instagram and everything else. Yet we don't acknowledge the fact that 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 it's okay for us to feel that entitled to the righteous indignation that we all can that we can all carry because we're right, and that practice these principles in all our affairs. One of those principles is, in reality, is we're not as drunks, we're not entitled to righteous indignation. And I want to. There's a caveat to that, and I want to. I want to explain. There's a book. I can't remember the author, but the name of the book is "In Search of Serenity." And one of the most powerful chapters in that is about anger. So this guy, through the whole book, I thought he was talking about his substance abuse, and as it turns out, he never mentions it in the book. But he was in an accident and became a quadriplegic. After he already had part of his adult life as a physically functioning human being, and so he had a lot to deal with, not just the substance abuse, but he talked about stuffing your anger is never going to cure it. It's going to manifest itself in something else. You're going to suffer emotionally. You're going to suffer physically. You can't just, let go of your anger. You have to channel. So, and that's a great way for me to get angry because, I have to decide, can I actually do something to correct what's wrong? And that's the serenity. That's the essence of the serenity prayer. Can I actually fix this? And is it something that needs to be fixed, or is it me? But if it's actually something that, if it's a wrong that needs to be righted, can I try and right it myself? If I can't, then I have to let it go. And it's not a matter of anger. It's letting something external go. And the other thing is, did I try to do the right, again, going back to doing the right thing, when I did the right thing and tried to, set an example or do whatever I needed to do to try to right that wrong, the outcome is irrelevant, and it goes back to,
oh, well,
yeah. So,
oh, well,
go ahead.
And then I was going to say, Jerry, you talk about fear, like I'm here because I'm still afraid I might fall back on that. Do you think, that fear has waned in the last 6 years, right? Because I feel like in the beginning it was
more profound than the start. Yeah, but it's still there. I think it's more of a warning than it is actual fear. I think fear is the base root of it, but it doesn't manifest itself in the way it did in early recovery. But I don't know what is early. I don't even know if I'm still in early recovery now. Do you know what I mean? But let's say in the beginning part where I was like physically dealing with the physical manifestation of withdrawal and all that stuff. Yeah. That, but no, I don't feel that fear. Like not as profoundly as I did in the beginning. No. It's still there though. You know what? It's caution. It's kind of fearful caution. It's like knowing there's a precipice there. So mind your step. Whereas in the beginning, in the beginning, it was more like I was hovering over it constantly. And now I'm like at the edge of it going, all right, use the guardrail, Jerry. Like, you don't want to go down that hole again,
Yeah. And it's just like, I feel like it's definitely, it's shifted. I'm far more interested in being better than just digging myself out of a hole, right? I'm not just like in the hole anymore. I'm low down there, right? I'm on the ground and I'm trying to get better, and I'm trying to find, spirituality keeps coming up and God keeps coming up, and finding that higher power, higher being, higher sense of self. So my higher self, right? So what does that person look like, and how can I be that person? Not because I want validations, but because it feels better, because I can get more done, because I can just exist in a way that is more peaceful. So, but it's true. Like I don't think that you need God to follow the program or get sober, it seems to just happen regardless of whether or not you go looking for it or you buck against it.
Right.
It doesn't
hurt.
It doesn't hurt. Wouldn't you? Because you who, last week we spent quite a bit of time talking about it. You're like, well, it's still there for you, right? Even if it isn't prevalent every single, for you.
Yes, I do have a sense of spirituality. I think when I've been just irritable as fuck lately, but I think too what was happening was maybe I have to re-listen to what I had said, but I don't know if I was pushing against the concept of God or the verbiage of the word. And so, but even that is splitting hairs. It's six one way, half a dozen another, to be honest with you. I think I just am a naturally resistant person. Now, do I feel that? Yeah. Like even within this podcast here, hearing my dad's perspective on it, it doesn't change, but makes me reassess my perspective or study my motivations for those things. And when I hear someone who has, my dad's he's been through all kinds of shit, he's experienced all kinds of things, positive and negative. And still the constant remainder is not that he is drinking, but that he is working a program that at least helps him cope in some manner. And so that's kind of what I want and kind of what I'm trying to use. I haven't drank yet, and we've been through a ton of stuff. You haven't drank yet. None of us have drank yet. We've been through a fucking pandemic, dude. We both lost our jobs. My state caught on fire. I was afraid
Mine
every
too.
day we were going to get COVID. Your state caught on fire. Part of my dad's state caught on fire. Do you know what I mean? I went through this multi-state move and it's been incredibly stressful, but I haven't drank. And I can be miserable sometimes, but I'm just so happy that I don't have to drink it. I don't have to drink it, man. I don't have to do any of that with diarrhea and a hangover,
right,
and a migraine,
right,
or regret, or waking up and being like, what did I do? Because I know we've all had that moment where you wake up in a hangover and went, what did I do? What did I do? I would check myself physically to make sure I didn't hurt myself. So I don't have to do that anymore, at least in this time being. So I know, those, to me, even that shows me that there's some type of spirituality, some type of something bigger than me that's kind of compelling me to do these things,
Faith isn't something that isn't absolute and it's always there. If you're not questioning your faith.
Hang on a second, Jerry. I can't, your mic's not
real
on.
low.
Is it? Let me see if I can turn it up.
I think your earbuds are not connected.
Yeah. But
so I'm taking some medication for my lungs and it makes me whisper sometimes. It's my larynx. How about now? I'm turning the volume up. Is that better?
No,
not really.
No?
But
okay. Can you hear us through the earbuds?
Yeah, perfectly.
Huh.
Hold on. Give me just a second.
Yeah, go ahead.
No problem. But yeah, so I think you're talking about verbiage, and I think one of the things is it's given me language, there's vocabulary involved that I now have that I didn't before, Yeah.
But the way you guys, you talk about your relationship with your higher power or your spirituality, it's perfectly healthy for you to question it every day, because if you're not questioning it, how strong is it? I mean, do you want blind faith? Do you want to just trust blind faith? That's trading a bottle for a Bible.
Yeah.
The fact that I used to go to a retreat. I was fortunate enough, to be able to attend a retreat of clergy and recovery. And here are guys that, are God's representatives on this planet. They're not the Pope, but, they're God's representatives on this planet. And, you would hear them talk, man, everybody questions their faith, but that's a healthy thing. I feel like it's very healthy. Somebody questioning, is, I don't know. I'm at a loss of words of just waking up and waiting for, it's God's will. I can't relate to when people say, well, that's God's will. If you're waiting for a sign from God to tell you what to do, or no matter what happens, it's God's will. You go back to that waking up in the morning and doing the right thing. You got to be responsible. You either did the right thing or you didn't do the right thing. And my relationship with my higher power is to the fact of I thank him every day for the opportunity of today because I got a chance. You know, if you know, if life was fair, I'd be dead. Okay, honest to God, you know, that's not. I'm not stretching it. That is, you know, the reality of the situation. You know, so I feel like I've really been blessed with an opportunity. I have two older brothers that I never met. You know, they died before I even got a chance to know them. They died before I was born. You know, they never got a chance to, you know, to even be an adult. You know, and that I'm squandering it. Shame on me. You know, I mean, I have this opportunity, and so for me, I have a friend that's is every. I was never diagnosed with it, but we kid each other about being ADD. It made a successful salesman. But you know, he always when I get in a tizzy, I call him because he grounds me very well, and he always tells me, Jerry, he goes, Jerry, and he shakes his head back and forth, and he laughs and he starts to take smile, and he goes, you got to remember, right action leads to right thought faster than right thought leads to right action. You know, and for us, it's true. You know, if we say that, you know, the most dangerous place on this planet for me is in between my ears. You know, I got to get out and do something. And that's that practice, these principles. If I'm doing something and I'm doing it, you know, practicing the principles of AA, you know, again, good shit should happen. If it doesn't, it's not because I didn't try. But you know, the idea of you know, questioning your spirituality for me is for you know, and for me it's fucking healthy. Okay, it's that simple. You know, because if I'm not questioning it, I'm not stepping up to the next level. You know, I'm perfectly comfortable being stagnant where I am, and I, you know, if I think today I'm as good as I can be, you know, shame on me.
Right.
I'll get off my soapbox.
No, it's true. I mean, action dictates mood, right? Yeah. It's not the other way around. We can't wait until we're in the mood to get things done.
Right.
Like you said, if it's God's will, we should just get started anyway. And then if it's God's will, he'll be there to help, right? We shouldn't wait for God's will to tell us or to show us. Like, just get started with whatever it is that you need to do or want to do. And if it's God's will, he'll be there. If it's not, he'll let you know. Right?
You'll find out.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think one of the big things, and you know, you touched on it before, was principles. Practice these principles in all our affairs, and this sort of the broader scope of our life, and making sure that we are behaving in a way, in a manner, not just in the room 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week or whatever it is, you know. So I think that that's one of the most important things that I have learned is like, okay, take this outside of the first 164 pages. This needs to go with you to work and with your family and with your friends and with whatever relationships and money and all this stuff. So that's been something that's been really helpful for me.
Yeah.
I can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel like, you know, the program really has helped me mature. I was sharing with Jerry a day before yesterday about, you know, I went to go visit the guy that we used to work together, and I always get a big kick out of, you know, he one time I was asking the group that I manage, because I used to take summer, you know, I'd go and take these courses in the summertime to try to learn how to manage people, because I never, you know, I never studied that in school. It was just something that I grew into, and I apparently didn't do it very well, because I remember I was reading out all these different classes that were available to me, and one of them was how to give criticism with tact. And this one guy that worked for me raised his hand and said, "I'll pay for that one." And you know, so you know, today I wake up and I'm, you know, confident in the fact that I'm not as much of an asshole as I was, you know, yesterday, and it's by the grace of God, you know, not because of me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, you know, and we'll wrap it up here in a minute, but I think, I mean, that's really a great way to end things is, by the grace of God, maybe I'm not as much of an asshole as I was yesterday. I mean, to put it bluntly.
Yeah, I think that's my new bumper sticker.
Right. I was gonna say that's going on the new podcast T-shirt.
But yeah, it's just yes. So I think that's probably the most succinct reason as to why I'm still in AA, is because I don't want to be as much of an asshole as I was yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, and Jerry, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any last words,
thanks for letting
Wagner?
Yeah, really. Thanks for letting me share. I really appreciate it, guys.
Yeah. Thanks, Dad. No, it's just great perspective. Even though we live in the same house, it's still, it's good for us to sit down and talk like this, though, because it does give me a lot of perspective. And here's the thing is, when me and my dad start talking about this stuff in the house, the normies kind of get creeped out. So to have three of us together in this, to do this is fine. But the normal drinkers in the house, you know, they're like, oh crap, they're going to put us in the cult. You know,
they're like, oh man, I just wanted to have my whiskey.
I just wanted my one seltzer.
Right.
You know?
Oh yeah.
Dude, the second Jerry and I start, you can hear the bottles start to crack open in the other room.
Right.
There they go.
Cool. Well, all right. So thank you very much, you guys. And then we'll do this again next week.
Yeah, I'll see you next week for why.
Hey, thank you so much for letting me share. I really appreciate it.
You bet.
Yeah, thanks, Pop.
Keep up the good work, guys. I'm proud of you both.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening. Our music, as always, is by Neglect. You can find more of his stuff at neglect.bandcamp.com.
And you can find us on all social media platforms that matter: Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And you can reach us at aisforalcoholic@gmail.com.
Talk to you later.
Yeah.